So without further ado, I'd like to introduce your moderator for this event, for this general session, Trina Gray. She is an IDEA presenter and writer. I have to make sure I'm reading off of this. Business consultant for IDEA World Club and Studio Summit, owner of Bay Athletic Club and Bay Urban Fitness in Michigan, which was voted a top 10 business in the state, awarded by the governor's office. She earned Community Service Award from IRSA for work in corporate wellness in her community and has earned the prestigious CEO Award given by Beachbody CEO Carl Deichler. She was selected out of 300,000 coaches for leading a thriving team of online coaches with integrity and success. Please welcome Trina Gray.
Thank you, April. Thanks for having me. So that's all you're going to need to hear from me tonight and about me, because we have an amazing panel of 4 incredible leaders in health and fitness. And I can tell you, over the past couple weeks of putting this together, we've had a lot of laughs. So we're going to try to keep it business-like tonight, but this 4 seems to burst out in laughter and jokes at each other at times. So I'll just tell you in advance, this could be fun. We've got 4 incredible people. I want to make sure you know who's in front of you. I'm going to give a very brief introduction because they will have a chance to tell their own stories as we go. So Ashley Selman is from Mountain View, California. She is a club owner of Evolution Trainers. Brent Gallagher is a studio owner from Houston, Texas, and he owns Avenue Fitness and Lifestyle. Shannon, did you just whistle for yourself? Okay. It starts. Okay, game's on. We're on. We have Shannon Fable. She is a consultant for Anytime Fitness worldwide, also a national presenter from Boulder, Colorado. And then Mr. Brent Klika, he is co-founder of Spider Fit Kids and a presenter and consultant from sunny San Diego. Welcome, panelists. Thank you. So let me tell you what this panel is and what it's not, and then we'll kick it over to them. So what it is, we want it to be a fast-paced, action-oriented panel where you are actually taking notes, listening to things that they're saying, and figuring out what fits you best. It is not a kick back and scroll your news feed kind of panel where every 30 minutes or so the panelist says something of interest. We've all been a part of or been at a panel where they just wing it. Let me tell you, these 4 are not winging it tonight. They each answered about 15 questions on a survey for me. We met on a video conference and we talked earlier today, so they are prepared. That's what it is, that's what it's not. So here's how we're gonna kick it off. I'm gonna start with Brent. He whistled for himself, he's ready to go. Our first section here is this. This is what you'll be hearing from the panelists. They're going to tell us about their career progression. If you want to set your career on fire, you need to know all the different career opportunities that are out there. So you'll hear their different career progressions, their different jobs in the industry, their unique path, a couple aha moments along the way, and what made them take off. And each panelist will have about 6 minutes for this segment. Here we go, Brent.
So I guess I'll start kind of in reverse here with what helped my career kind of take off and look at this and back and think there was no overnight success. I mean, it's taken me 10 years to be able to sit up here and kind of have this conversation with you tonight. But I look back about 2 years ago, I was sitting on the stage at another conference and kind of awaiting my moment to get elected Trainer of the Year, and it didn't happen. And I thought, well, my career's over with. And I said, from here on out, I got to, just struggle, got to go back to work in the grind, go back to training the 40 hours a week. You reverse another 2 years before that, I had my chance of riding around with the PGA Tour and traveling the country and training some of the best golfers in the world. And I thought, that's it. This is it. This is the moment. I'm going to get to work with all the professional athletes. I'm going to have these great stories. I'm going to have these cool videos. And nothing really ever happened. Back up from that, another 2 years before that, I was sitting at my facility and kind of had this aha moment that I'm sitting here trying to get clients work out for 60 minutes when they can barely show up for 20 to 30 minutes of their sessions. So I said, you know what, I'm going to change my model. I'm going to change from 60 minutes down to 30 minutes. And I thought, this is it. This is my moment. Everything's going to be great tomorrow when I wake up. It didn't happen. And you reverse it even further back than that. My wife and I started a journey of our gym in 2006, and we had $220,000 of debt. And I said, whenever we pay this debt off, we're going to have this amazing story. We're going to do some amazing things. And it took us 22 months from start to finish to pay all this debt off. And when I paid it off, nothing really happened. The career didn't take off like I was thinking. So I had all these moments throughout my career. And as I look back on it, I think there was one decisive moment for me that where really things started to take off. And it was this moment when I decided to open my facility. I was training at a facility. I kind of began studying the ropes. I started taking out business people to lunch to begin to understand what's the business side of all this. And, and I started kind of investing more in learning about the business aspect of it, not just the training side of it all. Everything started to kind of open up. And I had this lease in my hand, and I signed the lease. And the landlord said, "Great, you owe us $16,000 for your build out." And I said, "Well, I'm 25 years old. I own a bunch of thrift store furniture. I have an old beat-up truck." I said, "Nothing worth $16,000. I don't know how I'm going to make this happen." And this was on a Monday. I said, "My dreams are going to be shattered." And he said, "You need this by Friday." I said, "I don't know what's going to happen." So I called my parents. I said, "Hey, you got any money?" And they said, "No." I said, They said, "We actually don't think this is the right thing for you to do." Then at the time, it was my fiance. And I said, "Hey, do you think your parents would give us money?" And she said, "No, they don't have the money to give us, and I really don't think that you should do this either." But I had this vision in my head that this was that location. This was that one spot. I had prepared for this one kind of particular situation for about the past 6 years before that. And I was training one individual. That was it. I had only one client to my name. So it wasn't really much of a trainer at the time. My career wasn't very much on fire either. But this guy, he believed in me a lot. And he came in one day, and I got through training, and he said, "Hey, what's wrong? I can tell you're a little down." I said, "Well, I owe $16,000 by the end of the week." And he said, "Oh, I hope that all works out for you." And I go back to see him at the end of the week on a Thursday. We get through with our training session. And he says, "Here, I got something for you." And he gave me an envelope, and I opened it up, and inside of it was a check for $16,000. And, I very humbly said, "I'm sorry, I can't accept this." And he says, "No, this is for you." And I said, "I'm not going to take a loan. I don't know if I can pay you back." He says, "It's not a loan." I said, "I'm not taking charity. My parents taught me I was better than that." And he said, "No, this isn't that either." I said, "Well, what is it?" He says, "It's an advancement for training." He goes, "How much training can I get for $16,000? So at that moment, I thought that was it. So as we wrestled with this question, I said, it was a decision that I made now 11 years ago that is finally paying off tonight, to be able to sit up here and kind of speak with you. The aha moment came literally when Trina asked us these questions of, what was it? What was that moment that my career started to kind of change? And I think I look back now on all the struggles and all the ups and downs, and I had so many bad things that happened along the way that, I thought there were times that this is it. This is the end of the journey. I'm going to go find something else to do. So, I think the biggest, you look at things and say, the path that I've taken that still take today, a trainer, a janitor that cleans all day long. This morning I was at my facility. I trained a couple of clients before I jumped on the plane. I cleaned the bathrooms before I left to come up here. And some of you might say, well, your career's not really on fire if you don't have somebody clean them for you. But it's that willingness to continuously keep sweeping the floors and to clean your own bathroom that I think people respect when they come into our facility. That we live by this mission of remaining surgically clean, and the ladies that do help us clean the space may not see it all the time, or they might be somewhere else. And I notice those little things. But I think when I started to become aware of that situation where if I lead by example, if I'm self-aware, what we like to say at our facility, if I'm a first-class noticer, when I walk through my facility, am I just rushing to get through, or am I taking the time to really go, I can see that dust bunny over there and underneath it, and it's swirling around in the corner, and it's bigger than Texas, it's taken on a life size of its own. You see those things and you laugh because you're like, I see that all the time. You see the sweat marks that are on the floor when, Janice is laying down and you're like, God, look at that hair next to her. I really should get that. So those are those little things that I think you go, when you
Brent,
become
I don't want to
aware-
lose you in dust bunnies and sweat, but let me ask you one question before we go to Ashley. We're going to get to talk about some of your failures in a minute, which is going to be really fun. But other things that you're known for in the industry, right? So you were really had a lot of conviction to open a studio with a $16,000 training loan from a client 10 years ago. and a couple things that have differentiated you in the industry were your 30-minute sessions, but there's one other big one that I'd say really set your career on fire, and that had to do with nutrition. I don't know that you'll have another chance to talk about that tonight, so do you want to share that?
So just real quickly there, we a couple of years ago, we kind of had one of my guys that was training for us is getting really frustrated from the nutrition side of things. And I said, well, what do you want to do about it? And he said, well, let's start talking about food in a whole different way. Let's not talk about supplements and bars and which camp that you belong into. And he goes, let's start talking about behavior. Let's start getting people back around a table face to face, and let's break bread together, so to say. And so he pushed it for about 3 or 4 years of trying to build this small little program. And we turned it into a kitchen inside of our small little training facility, in which now we host cooking classes, we bring in farmers, we bring in outside vendors to come and talk to our community. And the coolest thing about it too, as well, is we host dinners directly on our training floor, which is another reason why we keep it surgically clean.
It's on a table, not the actual floor.
Yeah, we are a step above eating with our hands, so yeah.
Cool, so opening up the facility, even going against maybe the advice of your family and your fiance, taking that gift of training, paying it back. 30-minute sessions and nutrition have really set your career on fire. Mm-hmm. Okay, Shannon, tell them where you started and what your path has been and what things set you on fire.
Yeah, this is a perfect dichotomy. I kind of categorize my life as a purposeful accident. It's just been a series of really random things that led me to the place where I was meant to be, and somebody else knew it long before I needed to do it. Do you want me to cue the tears now? Because it kind of made me tear up a little bit. Totally by accident. I was a dancer from 3. I danced with the Joffrey Ballet when I was 11, 12. They found out I was going to be 5 feet. They kicked me out. I became a gymnast because I was pissed. And then I became a cheerleader at the University of Florida. And I often say I traded an eating disorder for an exercise disorder, because at 107 pounds, I was the second to biggest girl on my team every year that I cheered. So I didn't eat for 4 years, but I exercised a lot, and I thought that was really cool. But when I got out of college, I discovered that food really tasted good, and I started eating. So I had to kick my exercise into overgear. So in the 90s, I was that girl on the stair stepper in the gym, anyone else with me, stepping for hours and hours and hours. Like, there's got to be something better than this. So I ended up in a group fitness class. And immediately, my competitive side came out, and I'm like, I could totally do this better than this girl. So I slowly worked my way from the back to the front, and I was the girl that had the tape in her bag just in case someone didn't show up. I may or may not have locked her in the bathroom. I will not say that I did it. Anyway, so I was really fortunate. I mean, where my career really started shaping was I didn't even know it was a career or that it was an option or you could make money doing this. I just thought I would enjoy it a lot more if I was in charge. And so there was a gal that ran our clubs, the group fitness department, Melissa Lane. She's now a presenter on the circuit and has been for quite some time, which is a fun twist to the story. But at that point, she was running this internal mentoring program where she would identify and have her instructors identify talent in their classes and essentially invite you to be part of this weekend program, which I don't think we do enough of that anymore. Handpicked talent, walk you through preparing for the exam, give you the hands-on experience. Once you pass the exam, she put me into an internship program. And I was matched up with her, so for 6 weeks, you would show up in their class and you'd do a little bit more each week to get your feet wet to start teaching. So that was where the group fitness side of my life really started to take off, and she hired, I don't know what she was thinking, she made me a manager like 6 months later, which was just stupid, but it was a glorified babysitter. You just made sure people showed up, right, and nobody fought. So I was a group fitness manager, and I was like, I hate my real life, because during the day, I did population density studies. Talk about a sexy career. I seriously told boarders where to put their stores. So I was really bored during the day on my heels, and I started teaching more, and along the way, our club got bought by Crunch, and about the same time, the club that we were currently owned by, they became the first distributors for Les Mills, a small company small little thing called Body Pump. So I became one of the first 10 teachers in the US to teach Body Pump when they brought it over to the US. Eventually left my full-time job, went to work for the Step Company as a training coordinator, did trainings on the weekends, and eventually took over the trade show coordinator position, which truly opened my eyes to how many different paths there are in the fitness industry. Like, there's not just group fitness or personal training. There's so much in between with manufacturing and with production and program management and presenting, and it was like a kid in a candy store. So I soaked that up and kept doing the presenting. Meanwhile, Crunch had purchased our club. Crunch is an eclectic gym, and I promptly got fired from being a group fitness manager, and cue the tears down my face because I thought my life was over. I was no longer making $10 an hour, making sure that people showed up for classes. I was devastated. But Donna Cyrus was, she is the queen of spotting talent, and she's like, you're wasting your talent doing payroll. This is not where I need you to be. I need you to be somewhere different. And why I say it's a purposeful accident, like everyone saw something in me that I never really quite saw in myself, and I just kept trusting people to point me in the right direction and knew I'd eventually end up where I wanted to be. So she hooked me up with this guy named J.B. Burns. He had a little program called Urban Rebounding, which was perfect for the cheerleader on crack. So all of a sudden I was jumping on trampolines all day. And the first show that I went to, I never went to a show as an attendee. I showed up at IDEA in 1999 as a presenter with 200 people in my room and didn't know enough to know that I should be wanting to pee in my pants. So I jumped around on the trampoline for a little while, did the whole show circuit that year, got discovered by Schwinn. They flew me out to Colorado, had this big meeting. I didn't even know what the meeting was about, or that was a thing, or that people flew you places and put you in limousines and took you places to interview you. And we want you to help with this program development for the strength training program we're launching. I'm like, sweet, count me in. So about that time, we also divorced from Mad Dog. We had a really good relationship with them. I ended up being in charge of creating a cycling program, moved from there to Colorado. The rest is history. It's just a really crazy story of things that continued to happen. And the thing that really changed for me, though, along the way, I also did personal training for Crunch, was very successful personal training, group fitness. I told Trina, I always kind of hid in the closet the fact that my schooling has absolutely nothing to do with fitness, and I am unapologetic about that now. I've learned everything I needed to know in every job that I've done, but my life, I didn't start out to be an exercise person. I was a sociologist, and this is all just one big sociology experiment. So I finally realized that I actually had ended up in the exact right place, because we need to know equally about the art of fitness and the art of getting people to work together in groups and cooperate. So when I stopped apologizing for that, different things opened up in my life. And then I also had a really strong business background, so I started flexing my business muscles. So I've kind of become known for and consulted more on, I have done program development, a ton of program development, but I started really honing in on my specific niche, which is setting up training programs, setting up businesses, setting up personal training businesses, and helping teach people how to be successful in business. So along the way, I got hooked up with Anytime, and I always swore, call me a consultant, and I'm like, that's still who I identify with, because I've been a consultant for so long. But I finally got married, and I've been a full-time employee of Anytime for 4 years, and don't do as much for anyone else anymore, but I found my home, and that's why I say it's a purposeful accident. I ended up in the right place, working for the right company, doing the right things with my same vision, with my skill set.
Dang.
How's that?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I think what's interesting, though, especially about Shannon's story, is that to be as successful as she's become in this industry, everybody knows who Shannon Fable is. She presents everywhere for everyone. She's an expert in so many different platforms, but she started off as a cheerleader and then a fitness instructor with a tape in her bag, right? And so her idea was not to dominate the world of fitness. She wasn't even sure that was a career. So I think that if you are going into this industry not knowing what your place is or not feeling like you have the background to stand on, Shannon's telling you to look at doors that open, make connections with people, figure out what your strengths are. When she said that her strengths are her business acumen, her ability to work with people, that's turned her into a world-class consultant. So I'd love to hear the different ways that people have gotten to where they are. So Ashley also has a wildly amazing story. Tell us all the different roles you've had in the industry and some aha moments.
Okay, so my progression is actually it progresses along from a sort of more obvious path, but I started as an athlete. I was an athlete my entire life and went to school. I was also a sociology major. Yes, who knew? I know. But I was really in sports and just got the easiest degree. Don't tell anyone that. Nothing against you, but I mean in my particular situation.
I did extra credit.
I was talking more in my situation.
Okay.
Ashley barely passed. Shannon got honors.
Okay. No, but so I was an athlete in college. I was a 2-time national champion in the javelin and had dreams to go on to the Olympic team. Sort of hadn't really even thought about after that point at that time because all my effort was going there. I tell my story a little bit more if you come to my session tomorrow, but essentially I didn't make the Olympic team, which was a really hard, that was the last track meet I ever competed in, was like a big old failure from where my dreams were set. And so it was a really hard moment to take. I didn't have any vision at that point of where to go next. I was very lost and didn't have an identity, and it was pretty tough. But in that transition, I happened to get this amazing opportunity to coach a world-class athlete, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, at the time, to help her make the Olympic team. And that was the first moment that I realized I could actually take something that I was passionate about and that I knew a lot about and turn it around and help somebody else. And it was an amazingly gratifying experience. And that was the moment when I realized there's more to life than just worrying about how far you can get in life, but it's really more about how much you can help other people. And to me, that's really the true purpose in life and where we really get the most fulfillment. And so I started being a coach and was coaching at Stanford and was also getting my master's degree in sports psychology and was making very little money being a coach and was trying to figure out how to make ends meet. So I just happened into a personal training studio, never with the intention that I was going to be a personal trainer as my career. But I got really lucky because the company I started working for was really cutting edge at the time. This is the late 90s. There weren't that many personal training studios around yet. And they were very focused on education and team and customer service and really had this great culture. And it just opened my eyes on what personal training really entailed, how much there was to learn, how much you could actually change somebody's life. And I realized in that moment, like, coaching's fun, and it was close to my heart as an athlete, but I really see my career going towards personal training. It's not only something that is more stable and I can make a better living in, but I can really see myself changing people's lives, and that's what I wanted to do. So I progressed with this company. I became a trainer full-time, and then I got an opportunity to be a manager for them, and then I got an opportunity to open a new facility for them. So it was an awesome learning experience because I got to open a facility under somebody else's dollar, and I got to learn what to do, what works and what didn't work, and got to grow my own team and learn a ton. I'm so thankful for that experience. At the same time, that company made some pretty significant mistakes. They were trying to grow really fast. They lost sight of what really got them to where they were, which was an amazing team of trainers, and they started kind of trying to get a little ahead of themselves and focusing on other things and spending a lot of money on technology and the facilities and taking their eye off the trainer. They started putting a lot more pressure on the trainers to meet numbers, and they started paying them less, and ultimately it changed the culture. They lost a lot of their top people, and that was sort of my aha moment where I realized, okay, I've opened a facility, I really want to do this again, but I have some ideas about how I want to do it, and the main idea is that trainers are what make you successful. The trainers are the most important part of your facility. So I developed a business, Evolution Trainers. This was 10 years ago now. That is an independent contractor model, but I chose that model not because I didn't want to pay employees or not because I wanted to do it the easy route, but because I wanted to take the best trainers that I knew and give them a career opportunity where they could really have the autonomy to make the decisions they wanted to make, train the way they wanted to train, and I wanted to give them this amazing environment and business support to help them be as successful as they could be. 10 years later, the 6 trainers that started with me are all still there now. None of them are partners or anything, they're just contractors, and I think that says a lot about that my vision resonated with those trainers, and my goal is to help them be successful. And that's where I am today.
From Olympic athlete to world-class coach to a world-class trainer in somebody else's facility to being aware of strategy, what was working, what wasn't working in business, being in tune to what was happening in that landscape, to then taking the leap to opening your own facility. Interestingly, Ashley, Brent, and I all opened a facility exactly 10 years ago. Brent and I actually share the same date of our anniversary of our facility. So there's something to like sticking with this for at least 10 years. So amazing story from Ashley about finding her own path. And sometimes the path is found after you've failed the hardest, right? Brett, can you share a little bit of your journey, your story, your path, and your aha moments?
Absolutely. I think there's probably a theme that everyone in this room has probably heard as we all talk, and we all have very different ways of chasing our dream of serving people. But the one thing to notice, and it's a big part of my story, is that your team and other people in your life are so significant. That the people that are in this room could be your difference maker to take your life and your career and your ability to help people to the next level. And that's a story, part of my story, and somewhat I learned it the hard way. But early on, I was always an athlete. Even as a young child, I was an overweight child, but I still liked playing sports. And I was overweight, and that's a big part of my story. And I was that kid that came from a culture of wellness, ate pretty well, was pretty active, but I just was an overweight kid. And I'd kind of succumbed to the fact, by the time I was 14, I'd kind of succumbed to the idea that this is it. You're going to be an overweight kid, and you're going to be an overweight adult, and this is the way you're going to live. And my uncle was Mr. Oregon. He was a bodybuilder. And he always was there from a standpoint of where I was talking about fitness. And so I kind of got into to running a little bit. I was always frustrated. I mean, I would cry. I mean, it was brutal going into those puberty years. And you're getting dressed in the locker room, and I got a little gut, and that's when all the other guys were getting buff and everything. And so my uncle was kind of helping me talk about things like that. And finally, my parents were like, okay, we'll support you. If you want this pair of Nikes instead of going to the cheapest, I think it's Pro Wings is what it was. If you want Nikes, we'll give you $1 towards a pair of shoes for every lap you run over at the track. Because I was saying, hey, can you guys help me do something, get me on a program? So first day, I get about a quarter of the way around, I earn myself $2. All of a sudden, I could earn myself $5 in a day. And all of a sudden, I had $45 for a pair of those Nikes. So I got my Nikes. Well, now that I got my Nikes, I can go run more. So then I discovered, man, this world is pretty cool. I don't have to be the overweight kid because I started losing weight. I started losing weight because I was moving. Here I'm 15, 16 years old. I'm starting to lose weight. I'm starting to get better at sports. I'm starting to get attention from what I wanted to get attention from. And so this changed not only from a sports standpoint. All of a sudden I'm starting in varsity and all these great things. My social identity was changing, but something very important was changing in my view of what I thought my life was going to be like. I realized that I could take control of that. And even at 16, 17 years old, I realized the power of that. That, wow, I have control over where I want my life to go. At 16, 17 years old, I knew that that's what I wanted to do with my life. But here I was this kind of low-burning flame, but I didn't have any gasoline yet. And I'm this low-burning flame, I got to help people. I just knew I had this belief I had to help people, but I didn't really know what to do. So I went to college, and I go to college, I want to play soccer in college, I rupture my spleen. And long story with that, I end up rupturing my spleen, college soccer, out of it, not going to happen. So I'm sitting and just bummed. But then through the rehab process, I really fall in love with the idea of programming and all of this. And well, if I use programming, it can help people. I was an exercise science major. But my ego had me believing that it wasn't cool to just be a trainer. I had to work with pro athletes. I had to work with athletes and it was my ego. I was the ego guy. And so I went in and I started volunteering with the football team and all these. And I was going to be the world's most famous athlete trainer. That was my path, I thought. So I end up meeting the strength coach at the time, Trent Greener. He ended up really helping me along. I ended up getting an internship, a very hard to get internship at the Olympic Training Center when I graduated down in San Diego at the Arco Olympic Training Center for the year before the Sydney Olympics. Step 2, I'm going to be the world's most famous athlete trainer. Well, also during this time, I had been living at home before I left to go to the Olympic Training Center. I'd been living at home, and I was to work. I grew up in Oregon City, blue-collar town. Your options to work, you go work construction, you go work as a hod carrier for a mason, you just go do work that I thought sucked. And my dad loved the fact that I thought it sucked because I would come home, his mouthy little son would come home and flop down on the couch and not be able to move. And he used to think that was hilarious. But then I realized, wait a minute. One summer, I decided to be a soccer coach. And I made even more money as a soccer coach than I did doing these crappy jobs. And I said, wait a minute, I could love what I do and make money. And okay, for sure, I'm going into this sports performance out there training. So anyway, so at the Olympic Training Center, I live and work with some of the world's best athletes. I think this is it. I've arrived. This is what I'm going to do. I'm such a stud. I'm going to be the world's most famous. This is so great. So then all of a sudden the Olympics are over. And I'm in San Diego, where it's $1 million to rent an apartment for a month. And I don't know what I'm going to do. And through a mutual person, I met this guy who's opening up this little facility in Scripps Ranch. And we had been playing phone tag. And so one night I'm in my little dorm room and I see the light on over in the gym at the Olympic Training Center. And someone's walking around in there. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get in so much trouble. I forgot to lock it. Oh. So I go over there and this guy's walking around, poking around at things, looking at stuff. And I go, can I help you? And I was really rude. I was ticked. So I go in and he's like, oh yeah, no, sorry. I was just working in the training room. I came over here and I was like, well, I'm Brent Klika. I'm a strength coach here. He's like, oh, hi, I'm Todd Durkin. I was like, hey, we've been playing phone tag. So he said, why don't you come up to my facility? And so I end up going out to my interview at his house, which I dressed up for. And I show up and he's in board shorts, no shirt on the front stoop, talking on his phone, totally sunburned. He'd been out water skiing with a client all day long. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I getting into here? So this interview turns into, I said, hey, I have experience working with kids and athletes. I'll be your athletic performance guy and all this stuff. Well, we're talking 1,000 square foot facility. When I went to the facility, I was like, I don't know if this is what I'm talking about. I don't know if this is it. Because remember, I'm going to be the world's most famous athlete trainer. So I get there, and in month one, the most professional athletes in the world don't come to work with you. I got to work. Todd and I worked with whoever would walk through that door, and please, God, somebody please walk through that door. And so I remember we'd be working out after work, and I worked with 6 people today. Oh my God, if I could work with 6 people in a day, I could get this apartment, I could do this. And so I was going through that, and so the process, then Fitness Quest 10 started doing well, but I still was just trying to get busy. I was doing kids camps. I was putting together kids camps for the facility and doing all this. So we started to get busy, started to get successful. I start to train 50 hours a week, 50 sessions a week, working Monday through Saturday around the clock. And I did that, and I really believed in this idea of, oh, I'm going to be this athlete trainer, but all of a sudden, am I working with pro athletes for 50 hours a week? I'm working with pro athletes 0 hours a week. I'm working with moms and dads and kids. But then I'm realizing, oh my gosh, I started off with this drive to show people that they could have power over their life. And in working with these people, I'm getting to do that. And it wasn't my ego that was feeding. It was like, I'm actually getting to help this 50-year-old woman. I'm getting to help this 60-year-old man. I'm actually helping their lives. And so I developed this intense interest. So for years, but my weakness was, I really believed that I had such a great mentor in Todd. I really believed that I had all the secrets. Todd had been my gasoline for this low-burning flame. It helped me believe in myself and do all these things. But I believe that I had the secrets. I didn't need to talk to anybody else. Hey, they're not going to tell me anything I don't know. I'm not going to read anything I don't know. So I go through this. I'm burning both candles at both ends for almost 9 years, thinking that I just know it all. I'm burning myself out. That's what I'm doing. Being very successful within my own right, but not reaching out. I reached a point of almost burnout. It was about 2007, 2008. And no one knows this. And even at the time, till I said something to him almost recently to Todd, I was just about ready to leave the industry. Because you work that much, and many of you in this room may be there. And I came to this epiphany. I was like, something's got to change. And so I realized my weakness. And so I started to collaborate with people. I started to open up. I started to share information. I started to write. I started to read. I started to read obsessively. I started to learn. I started to take every conference I could. I started to go up and introduce myself to every presenter that I'd ever respected. And I reached out to people. And I started to branch out. That's when my career started to take off. Got the opportunity to speak for IDEA. I had always wanted to speak. I was working one-on-one with people, trying to show people one-on-one that they could change their life. And now I have the opportunity to speak to whole rooms. This is 2009. I can share my message with hundreds of people. My dream was coming true. I go through all this, and then I get to start to write, and I get to start to do all these things. And then through the process of that, I meet somebody from Johnson & Johnson's Human Performance Institute. They're it's energy management. We work with some of the executive level people from some of the world's biggest companies. And they saw me speak, and they said, hey, we'd love to have you come speak for us. And so I started to do that, and that took off. And that actually has taken me away from Fitness Quest 10. I'm not really there that often anymore. I love Todd. I love the organization. I'm not there as much as I used to be. I'm not really there much at all. And being away and on the road made me realize my true passion in lying with kids and taking that step of, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do my own thing. And so now online, we'll be launching in a couple months our first course for SpiderFit kids, and it's really to bridge the gap of where we're at from 60 years ago, our education on what we should be doing with kids, and now what should we be doing with today's kids. And so it was just a big, long journey of belief, but then finally being able to say, you know what, I don't have all the answers, help. And through that, I've been able to win some awards, I've been able to write some books and things like that. But really, to me, those are the things that go on the resume, but the real story there is a belief that I wanted to help people, getting over my ego, reaching out, and that's when it really happens. I've never been happier.
Go, Brett. So you heard from Brett the idea of small beginnings. If you heard him mention the 1,000 square foot studio that Todd saw as, the Magic Kingdom, as he refers to Fitness Quest 10 as today, and Brett had to have faith in somebody else and start small beginnings, start with 1 client, 6 clients walking in the door. So success doesn't happen overnight, is what I'm hearing from your story, but over many nights, over many years. I think the other really pivotal part of his story that people can resonate with is where you start isn't where you end up, right? So he started wanting to work with athletes, and the more he worked, the more he realized he really resonated more with kids. So those are 2 completely different career paths. So just being open to listening to your heart, maybe more than your ego, what other people think is cool versus what you really love. Are maybe some overall lessons that we can all take from that. So I'm going to, Brett already touched on some of his failures. Our next question for them, I think that sometimes people can have great success and we put them up on a pedestal and we think, oh, we could never be like that. They have all these awards and these huge facilities and all this success, and I could never be like that. But I think that we resonate a lot more when we hear each other's failures. So Brett already mentioned, I'm going to just have him round this out and then I'll move on. But Brett already mentioned that one of his biggest failures was thinking he had all the answers and putting himself on an island and not seeking any outside input. And actually, Brett, you mentioned your other ones was that you thought you had to work with pro athletes. So I think we covered Brett's failures, which is good. It's a great part of your story. So let me go back to Brent and ask you, where did you fail along the way?
The biggest failure for me I had a string of 6 bad hires in a row.
How many was that?
6.
6.
Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It was to the point that our clients even started making fun of me about it because it was, how long is this one actually going to make it? And we had what I felt was a pretty rigorous hiring process. But I got blinded by, I go back to what Brett said, the ego aspect of it is I wanted this big facility. And I was like a little kid in a sandbox, and I didn't want anybody else to come into it, because it was mine, it was all mine. And so I kind of rushed them through this process, and our last step in the process, last 2 steps is we take them to eat with my team, and I get my team's opinion, and all 6 of these people, the team said no. And I said, no, I think these are right. You just don't see it. You just don't see it. The last step in the process is taking them to a dinner with my wife, and we see if their significant other wants to come along, because when you do bring somebody onto your team, you bring their other half too as well, and you want to see if they're crazy. If they're crazy, that could be a sounding point to not bring them on. And of the 6, my wife was 50-50 on all of them, and I just blindly said, yes, this is it, this is it. We even brought in 2 people from San Diego as well. But it ended up being one of these things that just left me devastated, and I was scared actually to go back to the drawing board because we actually lost clients along the way. We bring these people on, they become part of their lives, and then 2, 3, 4, 6 months later, they're gone. So I began to really question my abilities as a leader and kind of to spot talent, so to say.
How did you fix it?
I think honestly, it's just getting back up and doing it again. I talked to a lot of my clients that they were part of that hiring process and saying, that happens. It sneaks past you. There's always that one person that kind of goes through, or in my case, 6 people that go through. But you learn.
What tip would you give? How many people out there are involved in hiring anybody on your team, or you hire people in your facility? Yeah. No? No one there? Kendra, you don't hire?
It's the wise counsel. I think the best part is like we do is take them to a lunch with your team. And if you have a significant other, do that as a final step in a little bit more intimate environment and really listen to their feedback. Don't be blindsided by, if I bring this person on, we bring in X more dollars, more people, everything grows big. And really, I think, listen to those that are around you because they have your best interests in mind too as well.
Brent, we also asked the question of what you've done through your career that's held yourself back. I think a lot of people hold themselves back from being their best version of themselves. What have you done to hold yourself back?
Kind of just two, and a quick one is, it's the fear of conflict. It's that fear of stepping up and kind of maybe engaging one of my teammates, when they're not kind of pulling their own weight. It's the fear of that uncomfortable situation that I need to have a private conversation with them. But I think more than anything, what's held me back is my own standard of excellence, not living up to it. Feeling that I put this bar so high for myself that I can't ever live up to it. And so there in turn, sometimes I did not take a step to do something because I thought, oh, well, it's not going to meet these standards versus, hey, let's just take one step and then every day get a little bit better. I thought, today I'm going to start, tomorrow it's the best it will ever be. So again, I think it's sometimes just redefining success for yourself because when you look at it, I look at y'all and see, what you're doing and go, wow, look, they're doing that so much better than I am. Well, I'm not seeing the 4, 5, 10 years before that you were, building to that process. So sometimes I think when we look at others, we see their success. We also have to look at and say there was a journey to get them to that point.
Awesome. So you got some great tips for involving your team and your family in your hiring process, which maybe people aren't doing that. That you've gotten over the fear of addressing conflict in your facility and that you're willing to just take one step forward knowing that perfection is not going to happen tomorrow. So Shannon, I like your smile. Shannon, tell us about your failures.
I'm going to jump right into failures. I've had many. I'm going to sum up a whole bunch. I don't even think I told you this. I'm going to sum up a whole bunch that kept happening over and over, and that's, when you're supposed to be getting a lesson out of it, but I just wasn't getting the lesson. I got fired a lot, but they... Hold on, let me back up. I look at them as being fired, but it was more the Donna story that I told earlier, where she's like, this isn't where you need to be. I need to put you in this position. And at that moment, like specifically the Donna one, it's like, but this is my life. Like, I'm supposed to be coordinating payroll and subs. Like, I love this. This isn't where you need to be. I see something in you. And I went kicking and screaming, and it worked out. And then when I went to Schwinn, I ended up behind the scenes a lot more than in front of the scenes, but I really liked being in front of the camera. And again, the conversation with me and my supervisor was, but I need you to do this because you are really good at the business side and developing talent and teaching people how to do this. You're good at doing this part too, but I need you here because not many people do it. I didn't want that. So I quit my job and became a contractor so I could do the part that I wanted. And it makes her laugh now that my job coming full circle, like at any time, I don't get to do anything in front of the camera. I am a voice on the other end of the phone doing business plans and propositions. But it is perfectly where I was meant to be. It just took a lot of people kicking me out of the nest and telling me what they thought I was better suited for. But I think it's a lot like what Brett said. It was my ego. I thought that to be someone in the fitness industry, you had to have the video, or you had to be the presenter, or you had to be in front of the largest group of people, and not really realizing how impactful you could be behind the scenes. So that was really my first lots of failures that I've learned from. But the biggest one on business-wise, and many of you that were in my pre-con today, we talk about I'm a Book Yourself salad coach, and I studied with a man named Michael Port. I say studied. I paid him $10,000 to listen to him talk to me. And but I say that part because it's like I told my friends this morning, like $10,000 is a lot of money for a fitness professional to say, okay, teach me business, and you have nothing to do with the fitness industry, but I trust you. And one of the toughest lessons he taught me was this concept of the red velvet rope policy, and trusting that you have to know who you were put on this earth to work with and who you weren't. And you have to find your ideal client, because when you find your ideal client, you do your best work. And when you do your best work, you do more of your best work, and people are talking about your best work, and that gets you more work. And if you're working with what he calls duds, you're not getting your best work, and you're not finding your best opportunities. And long story short, at the time when I was paying this money, I had my best paying contract ever. And it was for a very well-known person, company, et cetera, and it was easy work. I kind of really just had to phone it in because it wasn't challenging to me, and I hated it. It was seriously sucking my life dry. And it wasn't the person or the people, it was just the work. It was not what I was put on this earth to do. It was not in the area of the industry I needed to be, but it was good money and it was easy work. And as I was going through this process with Michael, the very first chapter is developing your red velvet rope policy. That is your first lesson. And we got to this point and he's like, okay, well, this is your dud client. You need to dump them. And I said, well, I'm not prepared to do that because it pays my mortgage. And he said, well, then you can't go to the next step. And I said, but I paid you money. He's like, but this is how it works. And he's like, I'm serious, you have to do something about it. You have to get yourself out of the situation because your light is dimming and no one's seeing the work that he's like, does your phone ring anymore for other opportunities? I'm like, no, but I thought it's just because they thought I had a really big job now and didn't have any time. He's like, no, because you're not producing the work that you used to produce. So long short, I just paid $10,000. I quit my $80,000 a year consulting job and went, now what? And it all worked out because all of a sudden I had this little gig with Anytime at the moment where I was doing a little bit of work, but I really didn't have any energy to put a lot of effort into it, so I wasn't doing as well as I could. And the minute that I got to turn that on, I was able to double my income in 3 months and never look back and find like precisely what I was meant to be doing. But it really took, and I know, if you close your eyes right now, there is a person on your book of business that you hope cancels every week. Am I right? And if you just got rid of them, all of the other clients in the middle that you don't really love and you don't really hate, you could do something with. Like this one person may be paying you $50, but they are zapping you of all the energy to make you more money. It was the biggest life lesson I ever learned, and I totally believe in it now. How's that one?
To add to
so
that,
good.
Did you see all of us as she was saying that? Was like, oh. And a lot of you were like, oh.
Yeah.
But I can say the second you put your energy, the second you align your energy with your value system and your true beliefs and what your contribution to the world is, the second you align those, that's rocket fuel. So everything that's standing in between that, you need to get rid of it. Bad self-belief, bad thoughts, bad people, toxic situations. As soon as you get rid of that and you put your energy and you align it with your true beliefs and where you truly believe your purpose is, it's rocket fuel. And you could, that's why all of us were just like, oh my, yes. You
have to do it, but you have to trust. And I think that was the real lesson. And because I'd paid him, I had to trust him. I was like, really, is this going to happen? Do you remember the Seinfeld episode where he kept losing money and finding it? It's kind of that philosophy. You really have to jump and build your wings on the way down, and it will all work out, I promise.
The other, I know this wasn't the point of your failure, but the other thing I heard from you is that you were so willing to invest in yourself to get to a greater level. And so all of you here, I mean, I want you to look at this like, and it didn't cost you $10,000, right? But it's $10,000 worth of value. It really is over these next few days. If you take pieces and do something with it, this is your $10,000 investment. Take it as seriously as Shannon took his advice, and it changed her life listening to him. It changed her life, right? So Ashley, you touched on your failure earlier, but would you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I'm going to go in a different direction with my
Sure,
story that I think
yeah.
is more relevant. So, I talked about the gym I worked at, that I opened a facility, and then I left and went and opened my facility. But what I didn't tell you was in the between time what happened. And it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to open my facility, and then now I have a facility. It was like, no. I moved to Marin, which was about an hour and a half away from where I was living before, because I thought that's where I was going to open my facility. And I worked in 5 different gyms there as an independent contractor to figure out what gyms I liked, who was doing things I liked, who wasn't. I was trying to open getting my business plan down, and I realized, like, I moved my entire life up here, and I realized after about 6 months of being there that my facility was not going to fly there. So I all of a sudden was like, oh crap, I just changed my whole life to do this thing that I thought was going to work, and it's not. So, okay, plan B, I moved to San Francisco and thought, I'll open a facility here. I like the city. It's where a lot of my roots are. I'm going to do it here. So I started looking to open a facility for about literally 2 years. I was looking at places and trying to get leases, and most of the time I would find a place that I really liked, but you'd have to get a conditional use permit, which I don't know how many, that just means the city has to agree that you can have the type of business there. And in most cases in San Francisco, there was a wait list for a year before they would hear your case. So there's no way you could rent a lease and be going a lease and then not know if you were gonna actually be able to have your business there. So literally for 2 years, I remember crying like days where I was just like, what the hell am I gonna do? Like, I cannot make this happen. And I had already moved twice. I worked out of 6 different gyms, so didn't have much community around me. I was just sort of like this individual, going all over the place just by myself, felt super lonely, this was after I'd been a manager and thought I was doing great, so it definitely felt like I was going backwards. And I took a business course and partnered up, and some woman in the business course said, why don't you open a facility down where you used to work, where you have all your network? And that's where I coached, and that's where I started my career. And I just was like, well, I'd moved on. In my mind, I was on to the next thing, and I was gonna move, but I was like, I'm so stuck that I'm willing to look at that. Even though 2 years ago I decided I was never gonna go back down there. First place I looked at from a rental, a real estate showed me, the price was great, it was a great location. It took me 30 days to get a permit. 3 months later, the doors were open, and it was so easy after I kind of allowed myself to open up to other opportunities. But it was literally 3 years of sort of pounding the pavement. It was a really, really hard time. And so I look back, 10 years is great, but it was there were days where I was like, this is never gonna work. It's not gonna happen. And so there's a lot of failures on the way to that kind of overnight success. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. The people have experienced loneliness in their business and just grinding in the trenches, thinking, am I really gonna build this dream that I see for myself? And I think it's reassuring for all of us, the practitioners and trainers here in the room, to know that someone who has a $1 million, beautiful, state-of-the-art facility outside of San Francisco was lonely and in the trenches for years trying to find the right place. So it doesn't just all click and happen, but the fact that you had fortitude and pushed through. And I also thought it was interesting that you had to go backwards in order to go forward. Both you and Shannon had to let go of really big things in order to go forward. So
Really quick, I don't want to interrupt, but I think another thing too is we hear these big picture, everyone has their big picture failure stories, but we all have a lot of, and we're still doing it. We try something, nobody shows up. We apply for something, we don't get it. We think of this great idea, and this is gonna be a big thing, and it's just, that's still happening. That still happens. So it's not just these big picture things, it's those little things that you try, that class that you think is going to be such a killer thing that you try to put together and 2 people show up. That talk you're putting on for your community and you picture in your head, you're sharing your knowledge with 100 people from the community and 2 people show up and they're clients that just feel sorry for you. That happens still. But it's that belief that we serve and there's a bigger picture that we're going to that carries us through. So it's not all just, these huge swings, and it's still those little tiny failures that still happen. But you just got to keep going. And it's almost like, that happened, what's next? You can't dwell on it. You are not a failure because whatever you try next week doesn't work. You're not a failure because of that. It's just another thing that happened, and next time you just do it better, and you just keep trying to connect closer and closer to where your true soul, your true passion is. And as soon as you hit that, that's when it takes off.
So we're going to move on to the next section of giving advice in different parts of the industry, but I wanted to give you a chance to quickly, in like 2 minutes or less, each of you, can you just give us the dichotomy of who you were 5 years ago and who you are now? So I'll go with Brent. What is different about your life 5 years ago and now? Just the growth in your life in 5 years, then and now.
I've lost a lot of hair since then. I think right now, today, every day I wake up, it's like this great, what are the possibilities that we can create every day that we go to work? My team and I get the choice to choose to say, hey, what if we tried this? Throughout the years, we've always said, what if? And we said, well, what if we change from 60 to 30 minutes? What could happen? We said, what if we put a kitchen inside our facility? And we made it happen. We said, what if we can put a dinner, we can host a dinner on our training floor? And we made it happen. And I think that's the beauty of what it was 5 years ago. I may not have recognized that ability in the moment because I was a little fearful of like growing things. But what I see now every day are those endless possibilities of getting my team together and saying, what can we do this week that is going to disrupt, so to say, the industry? I'm kind of that mindset of I don't like following the crowd. I like to go my own direction. And we wake up every day and say, hey, what if we do this? But with these possibilities of of these choices we have. You know, my team now there's 15 teammates. 7 of them are married, 5 of them have kids, and I bear that responsibility that if I make this decision of what if, and I bet the farm on it, so to say, it affects all their lives. You know, they all have mortgages too as well, just like I do. So, you know, 5 years ago, maybe not mature enough to understand that, but today, I love it. I love that burden. I love that responsibility of not only taking care of the immediate team, but all of their families and all the cool things that they get to do.
So 5 years ago, even being more focused on what's best for
All
Brent,
myself.
and now
Yeah,
it's
it was all
not
about,
just-
to be honest
right.
with you, it was all about trying to come speak at IDEA, like submitting over and over and over again, you know, and doing cool things like that. But I wasn't really worried about the team aspect of it. And then I realized, like, hey, if I build this great team, I'll have some cool things to talk about.
On a panel at IDEA.
Yeah, on a panel.
So waking up every day, if you guys heard him say, what could I do today to disrupt the industry? That's a pretty pivotal comment. Brett, who were you then? Who are you now?
I mean, really, I keep sharing the idea of the longer I've been in my career, the more I've put myself out there and allowed myself to be vulnerable. And I can tell you right now, I think I know less now than I ever have. You know, it's coming to that conclusion that instead of thinking you're the smartest person, being like, oh my God, I have so much to learn. And I feel more like that now than I did 5 years ago. I feel more like that now than I did a year ago. Having my daughter and becoming a father, I mean, that drastically changes you and realizes how much you don't know about just how life works. But I think that to really sum it up, it's that. I think in another 5 years, I'll be even more giving of myself and be even more like, man, teach me, somebody. I've never been more absorbent for knowledge and looking for people that can help me and admitting what I don't know and feeling like, man, I have to learn more. And I think that's the biggest difference. And honestly, I hope that it continues to go that way. And I aim for it to continue to go that way. And part of the being out my own business, it's a huge, yes, there's time freedom, but I think everybody that owns their own business understands the notion of time freedom. It's an exchange for accountability. Yeah, you can wake up and do whatever you want, but you have nobody else to blame if things go wrong except for yourself. So that's a whole new lesson as well. And like Brent said, you realize you can't outsource the blame on anyone else. It's you. And you're responsible not only for yourself, for other people. And it's an unbelievable thing. It's great. The feeling of serving is amazing, but it's also a lot of stress. And
I think we should get T-shirts made that say, leadership, you can't outsource the blame.
yeah.
I like it.
Do we have to credit you for that one? Yes. That was good. I really like that. You also said 5 years ago you were burning the candle at both ends. Yeah. And now you said you're still working super hard, but you're working for your mission and your thing, and maybe that just feels different, right?
It's working harder versus working smarter. And 5 years ago, I was even in just believing that if I just worked harder, longer, and now I'm realizing, yeah, you have to work hard and long days, but that's the learning part. How can I be better? How can I be better? How can I be better? And the more you learn, the smarter you work.
Shannon, what would you say 5 years ago and now?
I think pretty easy for me. I think 5 years ago, I had to say yes, and I was compelled to say yes. And now I have the luxury of saying no. And I think that's a really important place to get in your life is, like when I say I had to say yes, I felt like I needed the money, so I took anything with a pulse and a paycheck. And I felt compelled to say yes because my ego was driving my decisions. I was afraid if I didn't show up at every event, if I wasn't on every single docket, if I didn't win the award, that I would be forgotten about. So I kept saying yes. And much to what Brent was saying, like having a kid in that time frame, like I said earlier today, in the last 5 years, I discovered what a weekend was. I hadn't been home on a weekend for 15 years 5 years ago. Period. I traveled about 45 to 48 weeks out of the year. It was usually Thursday to Sunday. I got home on a Sunday. I went to work on Monday. I didn't have a life. I thought I had a life. I had no life. And so I think it's really neat to be in a place now where I'm still working super hard, to your point, and I work a lot. But I say this year is my year of no, but it's been an evolution to be able to choose and say no and only say yes to the things that are moving in a direction that continues to move me forward. So like Brent said, working smarter, not harder.
That's awesome. You said you're less apologetic about your beliefs and who you are today. So you must feel more confident today than you were 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think 5 years ago, and I said that in my opening story, I felt apologetic that I was, I felt bad that I was well known in an industry that I didn't go to school and had no proper schooling in that industry. Does that make sense? But then when I took a step back and realized what I was known for, it wasn't actually the exercise science or the science behind it, it really was the art, and that really was what I went to school for. So finally being okay to admit that I just have a different take on things that can help make you successful. And when you partner that with the science, the art and the science together are beautiful. I just stopped trying to pretend that I needed more about the science when I was doing really well with what I was already doing.
That's so
That was
awesome.
a roundabout way to say it. But yes, I'm less apologetic about that. I'm a sociology major with honors.
Dang it.
I gotta see
With honors. If we write about Shannon at all this weekend, we're going to write hashtag honors and hashtag year of no.
Year of no.
I love it. Ashley, really quickly, because I want to hit our last one up, but 5 years ago and today, what's the biggest drastic difference for you?
The biggest difference for me is more the internal kind of personal growth, and I would say just having more confidence in myself and belief in myself and being a little more authentically comfortable in my skin. I've always struggled with confidence, which if you look at my history, you might not guess that, but I've always struggled with confidence, and I feel like I'm growing more and more to myself.
Anything in particular, books, audios, seminars, anything that's helped you build your confidence?
I've done a lot of some of the business stuff. The one that I really like, Business, Darren Hardy Compound Effect, I know you're a big fan of that. That one helps with confidence just because it's like if you keep sticking with what you're doing, it will grow. But more from the personal side, like I've actually gotten into sort of meditation, and Pema Chodron's a great author if you're into that, and more the psychology side of things. Sort of self-exploration and self-growth.
Love it. Thank you, Ashley. Okay.
Pema Chodron,
It's hard. Can you spell that?
Pema, last name is Chodron.
That's a tough one. It's like you just want a spelling bee. I feel like you just want a spelling bee.
Hashtag
She
honor
won the
spelling.
She's so smart. Okay, our last question, and this is, we'll make these quick and we'll keep it moving. Quick tips for being a world-class trainer. One thing that came out super loud and clear when we video conference was everyone's agreement that we often hear people say that they're just a trainer, or they're a trainer, but they want to be, or they should be, a studio owner or something bigger and better. And we have 4 people up here, and 2 in particular who I'll call on, who can say, no, just being just a trainer was very successful and rewarding for me. So I'm going to start with Brett, talking about quick tips for being that world-class trainer and just owning that career path.
Well, part of it is like Trina said, sometimes we feel, I'm just a trainer and I haven't. Well, if you're serving the world like you want to serve the world and you're in line with your purpose, you're serving the world to the best of your ability. And so it's aligning that and focusing on that and giving your all, listening more than you talk. I love to talk, but I've learned that listening is something that has completely changed my career. So for me, it was always, and really working on the clarity of where you stand with, is this what's important to me? Don't follow your ego. And my ego would have derailed me if I still was chasing that, I got to be the world's famous athlete trainer. I wouldn't be right here right now. I think a lot of us talked about how ego got in our way, and part of that is being honest with yourself and saying, what parts of my career, my life, am I following my ego? What parts am I following my heart? And stick to those things that you're following your heart and your soul, because that's when that's how you truly become a world-class trainer.
Brett, what things specifically did you put in place, especially when you were recalling your time at Fitness Quest 10? How did you build a 6-figure training business? Give us a couple simple examples of what you did to be a full-time, profitable trainer.
Well, the first thing I did was for anyone here who's an independent contractor or employee for someone, especially in a studio environment, you have to have good lines of communication with your administration, with the owner, whoever it is. If you're a trainer at a place, you don't own it. And that was something that I had, and making it very clear that I planned to grow within that environment. And so it's Todd knew I wanted to grow, and Todd was going to help me grow within that environment. So I had support from the top to help me grow, and then I wanted to grow. So with that, it was this symbiotic sort of situation, and that was very important. And then it just goes into the constantly learning thing. I mean, when it comes to our craft, we have to be constantly learning within our craft, and that's something I did. But then it was always looking at opportunities. Where could I grow this program? How could I take this and grow it? If I can help one kid, how can I help 20 kids? If I can help one 50-year-old person with knee pain, how could I help 30 people with 30, 50-year-old people with knee pain? So it's always looking at, if my mission was to reach people, how could I take this one person and reach more people? And then that communication is really important too, very important.
That's awesome. So one, just making sure that whoever you're working with knows, I want to grow and I want to grow here, so they have the confidence in investing in you. You invested in learning yourself, and then you just said finding a bigger platform. If I could train one kid, could I run sports camps all over San Diego and Scripps Ranch? If I could train one person with knee pain, how can you 10x your expertise? And that's what I think that you did that took you from a $30,000 a year trainer to a $100,000 a year trainer.
Absolutely.
So Ashley, you have 40 independent contractors who all make very good livings in Mountain View. What are a couple things that your trainers do to be world class?
Yeah, I mean, my whole goal is to get trainers that are passionate about being a trainer and want to be in the trenches, right? I go to some of these conferences like, get out of the trenches. Like, wait a minute, that's why I became a trainer. I don't want to sit behind a desk. I want to train people. It's like, yes. So those are the type of trainers I look for, and the three things I coach them on to increase, kind of leverage their time and be able to increase what they make. And often they'll do it all in one fell swoop, which I think works nicely together. One is raise your rates if you haven't in the last year or two. Most trainers tend to undervalue themselves. To be able to raise your rates, though, you need to be really good at what you do. So if you don't feel like you're ready to raise your rates, come to courses like this or go back to studying, make sure you're really good at what you do, really good at programming, really good at connecting with people and building relationships, and that you're positioning yourself in some sort of niche. The more niche you are, typically, the more you can charge. So that's all the background work, but once you get to the point, raise your rates. At the same time, let's switch to sort of monthly billing, where you're having your clients commit to number of sessions a month rather than selling packages. That keeps your clients more committed to their program, makes them more progress, and it gets your paycheck much more consistent. So instead of getting 5 to 10 cancellations a week, those people are motivated to make up those sessions. I did that personally about 5 years ago with my clients, made a huge difference in not just my revenue, but more importantly, it made a huge difference in how often those clients showed up to their sessions. Now the people that started canceled 3 or 4 times a month aren't. So what's that doing to their results and their commitment? So it's a win-win, in my opinion. A lot of people are scared to do that because I think clients aren't going to like it, but it's actually a win-win. And then also when you're raising rates, anytime you raise a rate, I like to give clients an option. Maybe raising rate is going to price it out for them. So give them an option of maybe a buddy session or a small group or something that's a lower price point that they can actually still work with you. So my one-on rate is going to this. If you'd like to add a session, or if you'd like to if that's going to not work for you, here are a couple other options. You can do buddy training, it's going to be this amount, or you can join one of my small groups and offer 2 or 3 small groups a week and try to fill those. So it's not, I like this method because too often the advice is too drastic. It's like, I train 30 one-on-one sessions a week or 40. How are you going to all of a sudden dump that and go to running a bunch of boot camps around the city? Like, you're not. It's not realistic. So make it a gradual progression towards working with a few more people at a time, or just a couple hours a week that's a group. And then over time, you make a gradual transition. And the better you are at your craft and the better relationships you have with your people, the easier everything else I just said is to actually implement. So, and I hope that wasn't too much information, but that's...
No, I'm taking notes here, and be so good that you have to raise your rates is kind of what I'm hearing. Like, be so good at your craft that you can command that, be in a niche, own a certain part of the industry and a certain kind of client, monthly billing, consistent results for them, consistent paycheck for you, and don't flip your business model overnight. Going from, you come to a conference like this, everyone's talking about small group training, large group training, boot camps, but you do one-on-ones. You can't just switch your whole business overnight, but maybe gradually move people. Let's go to quick tips for leading a team and owning a business. Brent, can you share a couple quick tips on there for people who lead a team? What have you done well?
I think from the business aspect first, the most important thing that we did from day one was to get ourselves out of debt. I told you earlier, we paid off the $220,000 in the first 22 months of our business, and that meant that I sold my truck and inherited a 6-mile bike ride to and from work every single day. And most of the
hardcore.
time was with a bag of towels over my shoulder because we didn't have a washing machine at the facility. I had an old jam box radio down on the floor, and, putting in tapes and stuff. And this was pre-dawns of Facebook. I mean, so it wasn't like anything that people could take pictures of the bad stuff that we were doing. But I think more or less anything, we got ourselves out of debt. And I say that first because on the flip side of it all, that's allowed us to do some really amazing things along the way. We've done some cool things like take our team, or all of our team, on a trip to the Cayman Islands to hang out for 4 days at the Ritz-Carlton. Took them out to San Diego to hang out with Darren Hardy for a weekend for an event. We just got back from a team trip to Vegas because it was 10 years, and they are a part of this journey just as much as my wife and I are. And that getting out of debt has allowed us to take care of our team like no other. It helps me sleep peacefully at night, every single night, knowing that we've got cash in hand. We've become financially fit, if you will. And I think that's one of the things that has been the catalyst to everything else along the way. From the leadership side of it all, I think it starts with yourself. It starts with developing self-awareness of how you lead, what your style is, so to say. Some of us are a little bit louder. They like to talk, like Brett said. Some of them are a little bit more quiet, a little bit more reserved, like myself. I'm an introvert by nature, and you can ask Ashley and Trina. When they first met me, I never spoke for probably about the first year that I knew them. And at all these events that we went to, I'm very quiet, very reserved. And I used to come to these conferences and think everybody was just on Red Bull steroids all day long. And I'm like, that's how I have to be as a leader. So I go back and my team's like, what are you doing? That's not you. So I became comfortable with who I was. I had that self-awareness to say, I am a quiet person, and I'm okay with that. I look in the mirror and tell people, hey, I'm good enough and smart enough.
People like me. People like me.
I wasn't going to go that far with it. But I think those two things there of developing that keen sense of self-awareness, but then on the flip side of it all is having the confidence to lead in the style that is unique to you. Yeah, it's a big number. It's a big number. We're Dave Ramsey fans. We got to call in Dave Ramsey. I've been to his events. We've been featured on his radio show. They've called us up, did some interviews with us and stuff. So, yeah, it was a journey. It was a long story.
Yeah, as a fellow facility owner of 10 years, I can tell you what the benefit to the team of the owners working hard to annihilate debt. So we are also a debt-free business after 10 years. And we took out a huge loan to build out our facility, but what that allows us to do for the team and the continuing education we can offer, or even the pay raises, or the just fun stuff we can do. So I think it is important as an owner to look at ways to diversify your income.
One quick thing,
Yeah.
I think it's like we look at the corporate world, and you see them doing these very nice things for their employees. Well, maybe not right now with the oil and gas being so bad, but I think they send them on these nice trips. They say, hey, we want to send you to a conference to go learn. We'll pay for it. Not you take off the time, you foot the bill, you pay for everything else, and you don't get paid while you're gone too as well. I think that's something that if we can strive to, as myself, a 4,500 square foot facility, very small in this game here, so to say, of if we start acting like the big boys, but we're responsible enough to put our team in a situation where they can win too as well of, I would love to go, but I can't afford to take off. If they're going out and learning knowledge to come back and benefit you and benefit your community, why wouldn't you step up and say, I'm going to cover that for you. I will cover that, and I'll make sure too as well that you're going to get paid while you're gone. So it is possible regardless of the size. Don't think that we're 50,000 square feet and we have loads of money. It's a matter of we're a small mom and pop operation and we're trying to play like the big boys.
Yeah, good recap. That was awesome. So working on being financially fit for your organization, and as a leader, being comfortable in your own skin. And just being the leader that your teammates, know of you and expect of you, and not try to be somebody else in the industry. It can be hard in this industry to always look around at who everybody else is or what everybody else is doing. You got to be like so and so if you want to be on that stage, but you'll really do your best when you are your best. So let's go to quick tips we've got people in the room who are trainers, they work in facilities, or they own a gym, they need to diversify their income. Shannon, can you give people a couple ideas of things that you've done, different career paths you've taken that have allowed you to earn income in the fitness industry?
Yeah, I think the first thing to realize is there's no such thing as just a group fitness instructor, just a personal trainer. That's an entry, and it's a place to start playing. But the best thing you can do to diversify is to start to, like Brett was saying, find your passion and your skills, even if they're from outside the industry, and figure out how to put those together. I think before I started doing what I was doing, not many people made money doing the business side of fitness, if that makes sense, like structuring training departments and structuring, educational departments for product companies. And so I told this to someone in my session today. I think the best way to diversify is to make up your own job. The job that I have at any time did not exist before I made it up and said, pay me this much to do this. Like, it didn't exist, but I said, this is what I can do for you. But some of the more standard things that are already out there, I would say looking at MLMs is always something that we can look at to have residual income, and there are lots of them to choose from, so do your due diligence and know what's within your scope of practice and what meets the needs of your target market. I think writing for industry publications, they're always on the lookout for good writers. It's really hard to find good writers that have good solid content in fitness that can speak authentically about the fitness world. So if you have a passion for that and can pull those two things together, because that sets you up as with a credibility factor that can also parlay you into so many other avenues that you can do. And I'd say consulting. I mean, we use this big term consulting, and that's what I've always called myself, a consultant. But if you end up working for just one company, it's really tough. That's why I always make the joke about going to work, finally putting a ring on it and getting tattooed for any time. I never thought I would do it because I always realized I could make a lot more money by being a consultant.
Did you get the tattoo?
I do. I'm tatted. Isn't that exciting? We have a lot of tattoos. It's totally
it's just on the wrist.
It's all good. It's all
Okay.
good. No, our new facilities, I hope you're coming to visit. We have a tattoo parlor in our new facilities that are opening in a month. It's very exciting. So awesome. Jimmy Hayden did mine, by the way, and that's pretty cool. Okay, moving on. So we were on consulting, right? Consulting, strategy. What you know and what you understand, you can take it to lots of different people if you have confidence. And there was a lot of times where I was like, why would this person pay me this much money? I always felt like I was kind of faking it. And then I leaned into it because I was the only one really bold enough to stand up and say, no, I can make your business better. Here's how you do it, ... and having a strategy. So I think the business side of this business is really untapped. There are not a lot of people helping other people make money and make strategies and make business decisions to open their studios and run their studios. You guys had to do a lot of it on your own. It just didn't exist. And there are a lot of people out there that are giving you best practices to help, but being able, if you can, I think being a consultant is a really neat niche in this market. If you've got a story to tell and have a system that you can teach other people how to replicate it, you can keep making money off that same system over and over as you repurpose it for other people. So say MLM, consulting, and writing.
Tough. She's so smart. So there's a man, Brendan Bouchard, with honors, #honors. Brendan Bouchard is somebody that maybe some of you follow in the speaking world, and I think he actually presented at Idea World last year. But he is known for packaging your expertise and helping you sell it. So if there is something that you're good at, a certain training style you're good at, a small, opening a small group training gym, opening a boot camp, opening corporate wellness in your community, what are you good at? How can you package it? Shannon also mentioned network marketing, finding a program, a product, a mission, a company that might fit you, doing your due diligence, figuring out what would serve your target market, writing and consulting. So Brett, and then I'm going to open it, I'm going to close it after this one. So you have created your own program, you've created your own brand, you've created products, you've got a product launching, so you can certainly give some quick tips on how they could package their expertise and grow with it outside of just training.
Well, the simplest thing to do is find something that, just like Shannon said, find something that you do better than the average bear, that you've had success with, and then tell everybody else how you did it. And then charge money for it.
Simple. Amen.
Say that again.
Say something that you know better than the average
that you
bear.
do. Maybe it's that client that no one else can get success with and you have success with. You're doing it better than everybody else. I guarantee you there's 10,000 other people that want to know how you're having success with that client. If you like to write, write about it. If you like to speak, speak about it. If you like to make videos about it. But whatever medium you choose, just share your expertise with the world. You're ready right now. You're ready right now. Don't say, well, yeah, I'm just not ready. No, you're ready when you walk out of this room. Do it tonight. Don't stop and think, well, I'm just not ready. I'm not at that level yet. No, you're ready right now. You really are. I think we'd all agree. It's time to jump. Sports I love are surfing, skiing, things where you got to commit. If anybody in this room has ever surfed before or skis, you go down a steep hill, and if you get down there and you start to go side, you're done. You're either in or you're out. So get in or get out.
I like it.
And that's really what's going to take it. So you are ready. Go do it. The world needs you. A good friend of mine Sean Croxton. Some people in this room may know him. Very successful online brand. He told me one time, he said, well, Brett, if you have something that you can offer the world that can help make other people's lives better and you don't share it, you're kind of you're using an expletive, kind of an a-hole.
Keep it clean up here, Brett.
But the truth is, if you got something that you could share with the world, it's kind of an obligation to make other people's lives better. So don't be afraid. The world needs your light. They really do. They need your art. Seth Godin talks about share your art. The world needs everyone in this world's art. Let's go out there and share it.
So Ashley, I asked you guys, so you can finish with this one. If you were just starting now, what would you do? What would you do differently, or what would you do? You're just starting now, starting over.
Really, my biggest thing is I still would focus on team. That's where it's at for me.
That's what got you here, focusing on others more than yourself. Building a team, believing in others is your secret to success.
Yep.
Brent, if you're just starting off now, what would you focus on differently?
I think it's creating the experience when people walk into your door. Is it consistent from sun up to sundown? Is it the same at 5 o'clock in the morning as it is at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night? But that consistent experience of meeting their basic needs. Sometimes we look to the online world and we look to social media and we look to everything of like, we got to focus and get 100 new clients in the door. What if those 100 new clients walk in tomorrow? Are you going to be able to give them the experience that the people that already invest in you, or are you given that same type of experience? Because sometimes we want these bigger things, but we can't deliver on that basic experience day in and day out. So until I think that we can get this down to an art form, so to say, is that every day that you open the door, it is an experience when people walk in there. And I'm not talking about hooting and hollering and trying to give all the energy you can, because that's easy. That everybody can replicate that. I mean, really, if you're going off of energy, and this is maybe a rant, if you're going off of energy, it's so easy to replicate. Every single one of you could be hyper for about 2 hours out of your day, and then you can go drink some Red Bull and you can be hyper again. But if you give an authentic experience that's truly you, that's truly your team, that's truly your community, and you find that niche in what you do really well, rock it. And create that experience around it, and no one, it doesn't matter if someone opens up right next door to you and tries to replicate what you're doing, no one will be able to create the same type of experience. And that's when the people who come in and invest in you will go invite their friends, and you don't have to entice them with $50 off and share this on Facebook. They just naturally go tell someone, like they found a great restaurant. They're like, you got to go try this. Most restaurants don't entice you to bring a friend in. You just say, hey, come with me, this is awesome, or you should go try this next time. So I think if we think in that mindset, maybe look outside our industry more to say, where are the experiences happening, and how do we recreate that back into our own environment? Like, the possibilities are endless for you.
So create amazing experiences. Don't, I think Brent has something against Red Bull and Facebook.
I said that a couple of times.
He kind of rants on Facebook and Red Bull, so that's okay. And so create experiences. And then if 10 gyms open up around you, they're not creating the same experience. Shannon, if you were starting all over, what would you focus on right now?
I'm going to go more the business route. I think my advice to my younger self and to everyone is to start with the end in mind. And I start with the end in mind. And I know that sounds very like fitness grim reaper, but I don't,
I didn't think that's how you said it.
Okay,
no,
well, I'm going to go
now
there.
I do.
So what I mean by that, whenever I say gotta have an exit strategy, I've actually been asked to change the title of that workshop because it sounds too horrible. And it's not that I'm saying you've got to think about when you're going to leave, but I think we all enter thinking we can do this until we're 80. And you can't. You might not be able to enjoy your life. So I made the group today, and you need to tell me when you want to retire. Have you ever thought about when you actually want to be done? And then be able to do it just for fun, or when you want to, or in a less big way? And then how much money would you need to do that? Have you ever thought about how much money you want to make each year to be able to do that? And what's your quality of life? That's what I mean. What's your exit strategy? Because you can work really hard for 25 years and still not be able to retire. So it's either that or marry well. Those are my two pieces of advice. You either need to start with the end of mind and figure it out.
Shannon.
Oh, sorry, honey. That didn't work out well. So start with the end in mind. There, done.
No, but I love that. Listen, she just asked some really pivotal questions. Have you ever thought about how much money do you need to make to have the lifestyle that you want? We never talk about that in the fitness industry.
Yeah, and then be unapologetic about asking for freaking money. If I hear one more fitness person say, but I'd do it even if I didn't get paid, I'm gonna shoot you. Because
We're losing it.
I'll do the kill shot.
Because you're what makes it really hard for me to make money, and it makes it hard for all of us to make money. I think that really dumps down what we do and devalues what we do. We are changing people's lives on a daily basis, and we walk around saying, I don't make much, but sure do love it. There are lots of things that I love to do, but I'm gonna get paid for my expertise. So yeah, I really think you do. Like, when do you want to be done with it? What do you want that quality of life to be after the age of XYZ? And then reverse engineer it. How much money do you need to be making now? Like, if you were in the corporate world, you'd have that all figured out, right? Like, you'd know what your starting salary was and what your bonus potential was and what the growth was and how you get into the corner office, and you'd be strategizing for your career. And we just kind of go in it and say, well, if I work harder and charge more money, it'll all work out just fine. So I wish I would have known then that, like, all of this business stuff that I've put time and energy and money into has paid off. I can retire long before I thought I could because I finally figured out my strategy around my career. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Brett, what would you do differently? We're wrapping up.
Everything Shannon said.
Oh.
And aside from that, though, earlier on, I would focus on becoming a professional student instead of a professional expert at everything. I'd be a student of human behavior. I'd be a student of exercise and the history of movement, and I'd be a student of business. I would focus earlier on becoming a true student of everything versus just thinking I needed to be an expert at everything. And once you become a student, as soon as I made that flip and became a professional student, things changed. So I would have done that a lot earlier, and then all of Shannon's stuff too.
Other things that they mentioned to me earlier that I thought were really good too. Ashley said that as a trainer and a studio owner, she would have focused on marketing and getting advice on marketing sooner. Brett had also said that he would reach out to one fitness professional a week, somebody you meet at the conference, you know, collect cards, meet people. He'd just reach out to one fitness professional a week to grow his network, and he would do 30 minutes a day of reading. So just other really specific, tangible things that you can take from 4 very successful people in the industry. Can we give them a round of applause? So what we wanted to do was fill up the time with content and hopefully some great ideas for you. They will all be around over the course of the weekend. So we didn't want to take the panel down the rabbit hole of one question, which is why we thought we'd provide the content for you. However, they are all available and willing to answer questions over the course of the whole weekend. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to IDEA for kicking off the conference with a bang.